We are all busy people. We have lives, families, and not a lot of time to dive into the things we may be curious about. Luckily, podcasts provide us a way to consume the knowledge of others in a way that doesn't interrupt our day, and isn't really all that creepy for them either. Let your friends know about your favorite podcast, and if they are a Destiny fan and you're tired of answering all their lore questions, send them to us. We don't mind breaking them in for you.
Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 27th, 2019, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat as we continue our discussion over fallen leadership. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to refer to as the advanced segment of the week's exploration, so congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the Baroness with the Inheritrix of Nemesis, Green-Eyed Music Lover.
Also known as the Lore Madame.
Mm-hmm.
And last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend InfestedPotato. Potato, how are you doing?
Good. I am good. I'm enjoying this new little, like, what is green? Green thing. Introduces herself.
I got grief earlier because I didn't refer to her as the Lore Madam.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I'd rather be Lore Madam than Lore Daddy. So,
well, it was funny. I was in another little chat with some like a voice actor project, and I think it was a Hex or Star.
Mm-hmm.
They renamed me. What is it? D Billy. Oh, good Lord, I'm forgetting names again. D Bradley Baker.
Nice.
They changed my name in the chat to. I came back into the chat and I'm like, why am I typing? Who's? Oh, that's fun. I was like, you guys are clever. So that was
Nice.
Fun titles.
The Lord Daddy dating sim Black Flag. That is something that Anon Pig is in charge of. Go mess with him.
Oh, for those of you that don't know, D Bradley Baker was a Varric, and he was also the voice of the Gravemind.
Nice.
Yep. But enough with the chatter. I know everyone is looking forward to diving into the discussion, so let's get right into it. Let's take a quick moment to chat about this week's Lost Lore. And this week, actually, I wanted to take some time to discuss some of the deeper connections about not just within the fallen leadership, but actually something that Potato actually brought up within the last city. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Potato for this week's Lost Lore, since he brought it up. But he was curious about thoughts and ideas around burial practices of the last city. So I'm going to let him kind of lead the meandering through this particular tangent for a bit.
I'm gonna try to keep it as short a tangent as I can, because it was just kind of a random thought I had yesterday. I was listening to the Crucible cast from last week, and they were talking about the immortality of the Guardians and things along those lines. And it kind of got me thinking. With the I'm guessing it's general knowledge. I mean, we haven't have confirmation. Seen it with Porkchop bringing Aldrin back to life, that a ghost may not have found their guardian yet because that person has not yet died. And if that is so, is that something that happens regularly within the city? We have all these stories of ghosts that have not yet found their guardian, or they haven't found him yet. They've been searching for centuries or decades or X amount of time. And sorry, train of thought. And so my thought process is if that knowledge is known to the city's civilians, to the just the regular people of the city, how would that affect their religious beliefs, and how would that affect their burial practices? Because they talk about if somebody dies, right, or say they're killed in combat, if that person has the possibility of coming back as a guardian, while they may forget their former life, are you just going to bury your loved one, or are you going to let the ghosts kind of go over them and see if that is, their guardian, their chosen person? Now, if they, I know we say that the ghosts have picked people from the long dead, but we've seen that ghosts can, one, resurrect the recently dead via Aldrin, and that they can also bestow their gift upon someone which was the child in Ghost Stories, or the recently dead child in Ghost Stories. I retract that, not the recently
Confessions of Hope.
Confessions. Yeah, Confessions of Hope. That's it. That was really sad. Got a sad one. But yeah, so I'm thinking, like, my thought process was, how would that affect it? Are they telling stories to their children, kind of some of today's like major religions, Christianity, Judeo-Christian things, Islamic things like that? Be good because one day when you die, you'll go to heaven, or go to hell, or something like that. Like, do the parents of the city, or do religious sects of the city say, you could be one of the chosen and not even know it, kind of thing, and how that would affect or shape their society? We've never really seen it, and we've never really dove into that. And that was just something that I thought about, and I thought it'd be really kind of cool to hear what other people thought about it as well, because we have this, this super huge city in front of us with a mix of all the cultures that are still left out of the collapse, with one common variable: the guardians, the ghosts, and the traveler. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with that one. I don't know what you guys think.
So I think we kind of see a little bit of that within the dodgeball card. Actually, with the Reyna, and she does like the Titan salute, like, I think there is, and you see that with stolen intelligence too, right? Where we supposedly see snippets of Eris and what I think a lot of people assume is Asher playing together as kids within the last city. I would say that humanity as a general practice is inseparable from religion. I'm going to make up a word, but basically like religiousizing things that are just beyond our understanding. It's a very common, thing. If you look in the past of just in reality, you can see that with like the conquistadors with South America. That was a big component of that. I would be very surprised, especially with the history that we have from Jacob Hardy's, the Moon X cults and stuff like that. Right. So you already have the groundworks. You already have the groundwork for a religious worshiping of the traveler, whether for good or bad. You can debate on that all you want, but within those cults, that was during the Golden Age. That was during pre-Golden Age even. And so that was prior to the Guardians existing. So if you have those cults that are, coming into power, significant political power, significant power, and then you have the collapse, everything kind of goes to hell in a handbasket. But then you start finding, oh wait, you can be literally resurrected and come back as, as a god.
Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be silly not to expect that to have some play in the burial practices, if nothing else, of civilians. Because I mean, you also have the last city is under a constant threat of attack, so they're going to be they're going to be trying to gather as many of these super soldiers as they can. That alone, whether that is to be, you can have that do, because you see that. Well, actually, you see that with Aldrin. In that cutscene, he is laid out, and that's a common practice even today. Like a wake is a very common practice. You have New Orleans, does a huge thing with wakes. The Irish have a huge cultural, there's a complete process for that, and there's interesting historical dives that you can go into for the purposes of wakes and all that. But the idea of laying a body out for X amount of days until they go through the formal actually interring of the corpse, that's something that humanity has done already. And so to me, I think it would be, I don't think it's far-fetched at all to incorporate that into a a practice or a cultural practice. And I mean, like, I know chat's talking about like all the dangers and whatnot. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of danger there. I think it's it's pragmatic.
I mean,
to me,
here's the problem. Here's the problem I have with it, as far as, and this is not necessarily a lore thing. This is just like a semi-historical thing. When you have a lot of bodies hanging out, that depending on how long they leave it in the wake situation, right?
Correct. Well, and like, yeah, and to be fair,
you
like
still
a wake is usually like max like a week.
Right.
Like,
you still have to dispose of the body
before
in some way, shape, or form, in order to keep the hygiene, essentially, or the keep the area from becoming festering and then disgusting.
Yeah, of course. And I think like the thing there you see is like, short of cremation, burial of a body is not going to deter a ghost. Like, and we know we know that cremation will ruin chances of resurrection because of another story from Ghost Stories, the Titan, the Titan that uses the war beast as a weapon,
or the one that was going to get resurrected underneath the frickin' Cabal.
Yeah, that's the same
lander.
one. Yeah, it's the same one.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Because I think that's and then there's also, I think Cyril was another one, who became, there was his own problems there. But like, I think there are certain practices that probably would go away because of the possibility, like, and I think, and there might be practices, to be on the flip side, there might be practices that are encouraged by certain subcults because they don't want their loved one coming back. I mean, there's a flip side there too.
Do you really think that the city civilians are really thinking about that on a fairly large scale? I mean, because you have them living their lives, and the Guardians are so apart intrinsically of their lives, but even though they're intrinsically a part of their lives, but they're also very separate.
Right.
They're the protectors. It's like the military. There's people in the military out there. You may not see a military member very often, though, but they're out there. They're protecting, they're doing the job, they're doing that, and they're there, but they don't affect your daily life necessarily and directly.
See, and I see what you're saying. My counter argument is, in the same way that you can look at, let's take ancient Greece, in the same way that you could say that the concept of a demigod was not a part of that person's, an average city, because obviously demigods were not existent. But the entire point of the story was to teach people to live to a certain expectation, right? Like the whole thing with Heracles is to teach people to strive to be honorable, to strive to be truthful, all this, to pay your dues as you incurred them. Not necessarily that incurring them was a bad thing, but you will incur dues, and you should pay them with honor and with truth. That was actually something that was strove for. Now, my point here is that in the same mythological sense, guardians are being put on a pedestal. We can argue whether or not that's deserved or not. I mean, I'm game for that. But the same thing is like, but instead of it being just a myth, you actually can arguably see one of these myths walking down the street. So again, I can see two sides of this coin. I can see one side of this coin being like they not worship, but they idolize these guardians, and the very possibility that someone, in like what Potato was saying, like, you live your life good and you might have a chance of coming back as a guardian. Even knowing that, whether or not they know fully the whole cause, whatever. But like, that being the said, because we know that they do the same thing with Fallen. They use the Fallen as the boogeyman for the kids.
Yep.
And which that in and of itself is natural humanity. Like, humanity has always done that. You look at the Grimm fairy tales, you look at any fairy tales at all. That's what that is. It's taking something we don't understand that we're terrified of, and we're using that to teach the younger generations. But with like the mythological sense, you actually have a physical component that you can see that being there. And for all we know, there's a lot of guardians that this is exactly what did happen. Like, we don't know We don't know. We do know that technically, I think it was stated somewhere way back that technically there is an influx of Guardians that kind of aligns with the idea of all the players in Destiny are kind of in canon present. They're not all necessarily the Guardian, but there was an influx of Guardians, and so this could be an explanation for that. Again, I would not be surprised to learn that there are practices undertaken in the city, and like hygiene and the health of the city and everything, yes, but there's ways around that. I mean, even in today's world, we have these processes that are allowed to be done. We have wakes for various cultures, various reasons. That, I mean, they just in I think it was South Africa, they just got done taking the former president who died, and I mean his body has been on a tour. It sounds weird, but it's been on a tour ever since he died, and he died like a month and a half ago. And they are just now getting to the part where they're going to be looking at interring him. Now, part of that was a political argument between the family and the government, but the point is like they are doing kind of exactly this over there right now in reality. And so
Doom for Zombies tweeted at us, and it looks like text from, I want to say, this is from the Lost Cryptarch. So isn't this like the Thunderlord type quest? Mm-hmm. So in the quest, Ghost says, and he said, "Listen, don't worry about dying. Death isn't the end. Not since the Traveler showed up." Is one of the...
Yeah, and I mean, again, I go back to, we have Moon X cults, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that can be implied, and I think that this is admittedly one of them, that this would change the paradigm.
Blue, it keeps going. So that quote I started with, since the Traveler showed up, "You ever feel sad about your folks? You just wait for them to show up again as Guardians. You just wait."
Oh, yeah.
I'm still waiting. So
maybe it has happened before, and Holiday was just, it's that hope of a young child hoping for their family, hoping for their mom to come back, who's never going to walk through that door again. That's a sad reality.
I mean, that's Savin, right? I mean, Savin is the prime example of the Awoken, the way they handle that.
Yeah.
So speaking of first reses type thing, what about the ghost card? And I'm going to redirect us a little bit back about the ghost that freaked out about possibly resing a fallen.
That's Savin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no.
He's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. He gives the gift. And he goes,
the best part is he does laps around the house because he's like, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking about it. He's like, he's like pacing outside the door.
And then what was it? Wasn't the other one? The other part of that was like, he was like, the vandal let a refrigerator fall on him or something. Like, he's like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was, I'm not trying to spark a religious war here, or anything along those lines. It's just, I was just curious I know humanity as a society, we evolve and we adapt to what's going on around us, and anything we don't understand, we like Blue said, we try to explain it away either with logic or with some sort of story or with some sort of, the old adages, when that was told as a kid, when you hear thunder, that's angels. And if there's so many to pick from. It's just, I'm just really curious. I really like Blue's take on it, and I Green's as well. Just seeing it from that logical point of view, and then from that historical point of view. And yeah, it just fascinates me to, think that, hey, these people are seeing the dead rise, and they can't remember their former life, but they're seeing the dead rise, essentially, and what that would do to a society as a whole, saying, hey, maybe you never know, or maybe you will come, maybe you'll just be, are people still becoming exos, or are all the exos that are alive right now strictly Guardians, or what survivors of the collapse?
Yeah, I mean,
we found the technology from the Braze. We found the technology of the exos. Anna's been all over that. She's shipping some of that back to the city. So
If
Yeah,
she's
and I
stalking
think
with people in the city as much.
That's true. Yeah.
right. And I mean, the other thing that I keep coming back to whenever we talk about stuff like this is like the Arthur C. Clarke quote. It's any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Magic. Yeah, that's like the level 4 civilization.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's in magic there is not necessarily, now Clark was adamant about his views of religion, but like the thing is like Clark is not saying magic like the supernatural arcane magic necessarily always. Like there's also divine magic that he attributes in a couple different of his talks. But like his point is like, you know, if there is a point where exactly what Potato is saying, like there's a point where, you know, it is there is something going on. And if we can't wrap our head around it, we will find a logical, in our mind, a logical explanation. That's the curse of being a Gestalt-based creature, is like you have to, you don't, if something doesn't make sense, your brain will make it make sense. It just might not make sense the way it actually, like, arbitrarily factually makes sense, if that logic follows. So your brain will connect dots and make an implication on the information that's coming to it, even if that information is obviously not complete. And that's where you get the idea of various world religions, various world mythologies, the fairy tales, you know, all this stuff. It's not that they aren't true. It's that they are based in our brains trying to connect various points of our existence and make it make sense. And that's really what it is. Again, not that it's not true, but it maybe is not the whole picture.
No, yeah, and I totally see where you're coming from with that. And Dino, dude, you're like my hero, man, because you always correct me, like propose something, and you're like, and you get me, like, you're like, hey, actually, this is it. Thank you, my gaps in my knowledge, man. I really appreciate that. And that's not sarcasm or anything like that. I actually am really appreciative of that. But yeah, no, that plugs up a hole in the discussion point. You know, he says that there are no more exos being made. The tech is lost. The current exo population is survivors from the golden age or guardians. And so, yeah, that's actually really interesting.
So like Lakshmi and Banshee are non-guardian exos that are surviving.
And
Ada.
That's
why Ada.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where Ada's importance comes in, right? Because Ada is arguably a outlier of creation in that she was not constructed in the same vein as the other exos. And so there is a potential there as a bridge for maybe something. But
yeah, it's just, before we dive into this for the rest of the night.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things where it's like, again, I would love to have more information about the city. I can see, you know, chat was talking about it up there. Bungie might not want to get into it because, you know, exactly kind of what we were talking about. It can get dicey really quickly, but at the same time, you know, I go back to, it's a dystopian world. You know, and we know that in the Golden Age, it was called out in D1 that in the Golden Age, things changed. Everything changed. You know, paradigms and philosophical biases were thrown out the window with new information. So, I mean, it's, you know, I don't see how this... Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I guess we're just kind of all stopping and going, we can continue or we can talk.
So, Fallen?
Those
Blue?
guys.
Do we have any housekeeping notes before we get into that guy?
No,
again?
we don't have any for this particular one. Other than be sure I have the poll that's going to be hitting Discord this weekend for next month's Extra Lore and next month's community topic. So just be sure to jump in and vote over on the Discord channel. If I can get a couple minutes, I will post it on Twitter as well, but no promises on that given my current scheduled when I'm not scheduled to be on the podcast. It will be in the Discord channel. I have that set up right. I set that up actually right before I jumped on for the podcast. But other than that, no. No, not really. I don't have any other than that.
Cool.
All right, let's do it. So back into the Fallen. How do we even do this one? Are we getting into specific names and talking about them?
I
with
was
this one, or
thinking,
how did you
like,
want to do this one?
I was thinking to kind of tie into the stolen intelligence profiles.
Gotcha.
So we have the four names there, right? You have Mithrax, you have Ferrix, you have Aramis, and then Spider.
Yeah.
No, Fickrel.
That almost
Fickrel. Fickrel.
Fic rolls. Spider is kind of the
Yeah,
no
Spider's
one's putting him up there in
No,
that same vein with the others.
Well, and so there is there is the thing of like the whole thing in the stolen intelligence is like it's a profile report on these four major figures. There are two separatists and two I think they're called. Hang on, let me pull up my notes. They are called two separatists and two integrationists. The other fun thing here is that the person who wrote this report is RAN187. Keep wanting to call them Randy. Because
Shax?
Yeah, well, there's Shax. No, it's not Shax. It's the fire team member in Redrick's Claymore. And then we had the just announced pinnacle weapon is Randy's throwing knife. And so it's the only name that has REN that has like anyways. So a couple notes, and this is the entry called Outliers. A couple notes here, and this is a report that is pretty recent. It's noted that refugee attacks are down by 70% across the entirety of the planet Earth. They cross-reference to another stolen intelligence report, and it's saying that House Dusk is splintering and radicalizing due to a lack of clear leadership, which is really relevant to actually tonight's topic. And the reason why is, quote, young fallen are appropriating and imitating human mythology in absence of a strong cultural heritage of their own, end quote. And the reason why I actually want to bring that up is that this is connected to the fears voiced by Varix prior to his departure from the Prison of Elders, is because when right before Varix did the whole thing with his whole thing on the I'm going to become the Kellikels thing, he made the comment that Fickrel and Mithrax are arguably some of the only left Fickrel and the House of the Baron of Kings were the only ones left from before, and the House of Kings had just been decimated by Uldren when Fickrel docked the Baron or the Kell of Kings. When Fickrel and Uldren docked the Kell, they knocked him out. Like, they basically knocked him out of the running for anything. And so Varix was lamenting, because basically what that means is that all the knowledge prior to the prior to the whirlwind was effectively lost to the fallen. Mm-hmm. And so we see this within Outliers, that the reporting hidden is actually commenting on that. They're actually saying it seems like the fallen don't really know what's going on, and they are losing their cultural understanding of everything, and they are appropriating our culture. Again, we kind of mentioned this. Well, we kind of mentioned this with the spider, right? He's taking on human culture. And so then he kind of comes up and he says, hey, we have come too far to pull our punches now. So here are the four major threats that the Guardian writing this, or the Hidden that's writing this, is noticing. We have the two integrationists who are they're VIP 1121 and VIP 3987. 1121 is the code for Varix the Loyal, who is also referred to as the Kell of Kells, or the self-proclaimed Kell of Kells. 3987 is Mithrax, also known as the Kell of House Light. And then he also mentions the two separatists, which are VIP 4503 and 2029. 4503 is the code for Fickrel, also known as the Fanatic. And then 2029 is Aramis the Ship Stealer. And in opinion of RAN 187, Aramis is actually the primary threat. And this is the one in which the report is saying, basically, this is the person, or this is the fallen that we need to focus all the firepower on to knock out. Because Aramis is actively going after, we know that Aramis is going after Siva. She is also actively recruiting House Dusk and Disillusioned Fallen to become her own house, or her own version of House Wolves. So it's just an interesting thing there. And the interesting thing here also, or the curious thing for me, was that this is also where we see the complete acknowledgement of Fickrell as being basically able to cheat death, which we kind of see in game. But this is actually the explanation that this is actually what is happening. The only other character...
he also makes comments on it in the strike fairly often. Right, too.
Yeah. And the reason why with that is the corrupted ether. That allows the Scorn to be the Scorn. But the point that I was going to say there is the only other character that we see that quite frequently with is Tannix. Now, and this is also this like insert of a report is also why I don't view Tannix as really a contender for, I think, what was it? The Plasteel Throne, I think is what they called it. I mean, that combined with the fact that, again, Tannix is really a lone wolf. Like, he has no interest, it seems, in actually organizing a house because it doesn't profit for him. He's doing quite fine just by himself, being, the executioner that he is.
I mean, we don't have any characters named Bran, so that's good.
No, I mean, that's how you get pushed out of a tower, right?
And eventually develop weird powers.
Ran 187 is going to get pushed off the tower, and then he's going to form.
Who's the twins then, or the siblings?
God.
Anyway,
I don't feel comfortable going down this road because I have an answer for you, and you're going to get mad at me. Anyway, so when we look at Mithrax has a really interesting history. Mithrax is actually currently running around with 2 guardians. We kind of mentioned this on the intro episode, right? Mm-hmm. The Outlook Perfected entry actually gives us a bit more detail. The first teaser, I guess you would say, to this fire team with Mithrax was actually in the Queenbreaker, which is where Mithrax was seen kind of opening up a hidden cave while 2 guardians were with him. We get a little bit more information. We still don't have the names for these 2 guardians. We know that there is a male hunter and a female warlock. And they are actually, this is actually, and I had mentioned this in the introductory session, this is actually where we learned the true intent of 0 Hour, because these 2 guardians were actually really nervous about Mithrax doing what he was doing, and that was testing the faithfulness of our guardian. They were testing the waters to see if they could trust us to bring us into the fold of what they were doing, what they were actually doing. And this is also where you see that Mithrax actually does have a following. Mithrax has a very big following because this is where you also see the crew that is piloting the skiff. And I think that was something you had mentioned, Potato, about like the capital ship being. It's not a single pilot thing.
Yeah, he's doing just kind of a quick analysis of a catch. It's almost like I would say a battleship in terms of what like a battleship / carrier / life support. It might be the last of what was from their home. And those ships are big. We've seen them in game. They've flown our heads a lot. Been on 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. They're not a small thing.
No, they are not. So anyways, the thing with Mithrax actually has a pretty, I mean, he's already got a pretty extensive story in game. We see with, I think it's...
The introduction with Jur?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember which one it is. I think it's Misax. I always mispronounce
it is, because that's what she called him.
Well, that's actually his name. That's actually his name. She gives him the name. She gives him the name Mithrax. So anyways, it's Misrax. Misrax. So basically, this is the introduction of Mithrax. This is, I would argue, where Mithrax is born and Misrax is kind of put in the back, because Misrax is presented here. He is a vandal. He has been kidnapped by Shur and brought to the Dreaming City. And this is where you see Misrax as having a very, very strong antagonistic view of humanity and House Judgment in general. he says in the second quote, he says, whatever indignities she can muster are nothing compared to what he deserves. With his chin held high, he imagines shucking off his armor and laying all 4 of his arms in his captain's hands. His captain is his mother, and she will not dock him with a scythe. She will twist and tear his arms from his body like she is shucking a fine fat crab for dinner, and he will be glad of the slow sick cracks and crunches of his bones. He will be glad of the shame. Let him go limbless for the rest of his wasted life. Let the ether thirst shrivel him up like a Ypsilanti fig. And so, first off, a couple things here. You see that he was. You see the true depravity, arguably, of the fallen at this point, because this is. So his mother is his captain. So familial connection there. But his mother is also the one that will not dock him with a blade. She will literally rip his limbs from their joints. So there's no familial loyalty, I guess you would say. And you get a sense that that's kind of a sadistic creature there as well. And so you see this whole thing, and as you read through the entry, you see a connection being forged with Shur, and who will become later known as Mithrax. And go for it.
One thing I want to point out, and it's not necessarily direct tangent from you, but you mentioned that Mithrax that we meet is a Vandal, right?
Yes.
In 0 Hour, Mithrax is a captain already.
Correct. I was getting to that.
Yeah, sorry.
Because
skipping ahead.
No. Well, and I think that's my point too, because we get the connection here that this is Mithrax. Okay, so he's a Vandal here. When we first encounter Mithrax, it's on Titan. And it's the enemy of my enemy mission where you actually got to choose whether or not to kill him. And if you didn't kill him, you got access to 0.
Transponder, yeah.
So even then, he was a captain. He became a captain, I would argue, after he got here. Because also within, you see... So let me finish right here. Basically, Shur is trying to, I wouldn't necessarily say befriend, but to ally with Mithrax. Because basically at the end, he's coming. So he basically sees that she doesn't have her bow strung. And so he tries to jump off a cliff to kill himself. And Shur, in true fashion, basically stops him. She catches him by the foot and pulls him back up. And it's so funny. She's like, all right. And she pats his shoulder and pulls him upright like a sack of pissacks. It was just I love that Shur is like chiding him, like, no, it's okay. She takes a step back, brushing off her hands against the seat of her trousers. He glowers, the surliest pissack sack this side of the great machine, hating her horrible squared off teeth and her blunt stubby fingers. Let's try this again, shall we? Drawing 2 fractal knives from sheaths on her thighs, she makes a perfect iris bow before him. Thunderstruck, he sits up straight, stares. Not good? She asks, and tries again. Furious confusion takes him. This is some kind of trick, blasphemous mockery. Ifo6, he rumbles. She shakes her head. Nama. Sheathing one of her knives, she holds out her free hand with her fingers spread in supplication. He draws his chin toward his throat with the fresh betrayal, narrowing his secondary eyes. It speaks. Slowly, without breaking eye contact, she lays her other knife on the ground between them. The blade points towards her boot. He watches her every movement. How many secrets have the flesh lovers betrayed that this creature can make peace like a cringing Drek before his Kel? She taps 2 fingers against her cuirass. Sure, she says slowly, and then she points at him. Honor-bound, even as he simmers in scandal, he replies, Mithrax. Valask Sirux. Mithrax, she repeats and then grins. Valask Mithrax, and welcome. Let's have a look about, shall we? So basically, what is occurring here is that there is a bridge being formed between these two. Now, and this is where I would argue that Mithrax actually gets kind of taught that, like, humanity, the Awoken, they're not opposed, and you see that later within the Queenbreaker. The Queenbreaker entry. I'm trying to see if Ishtar is going to cooperate with me this time. But like within the Tangled Web armor set, you also have him, Mithrax, saying, "Let them have the great machine; they deserve it." And then you have
Kind of, I noticed that one too. Sorry, real quick. That's off of Bad Reputation.
Bad Reputation says, "Here we can start over." Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like those almost might be like he's still trying to come to terms with what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't sure. Let them have the great machine; they deserve it. Is maybe he's seeing the great machine as this kind of this evil, this thing that brought essentially destruction to his people, and that people that own it are warlike or destructive by nature, kind of thing. I don't know. That was just it was a side thought that I had. Is he saying let them have it because they deserve it because they're more barbaric or more ridden than we are? I don't know.
Yeah, and you get hang on real quick. So no, that's not what I was looking for.
That's a really good card. What card was that you just read? Sorry,
Which one?
The Queen Breaker.
That's from Queen Breakers.
No,
It's Celeste.
sure is Miss Rex. Miss
Right, but
Rex.
you said we would fight for the great machine together.
Yeah, that's from the Queen Breaker, and I love that card.
Varus's truth.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he says wolves rebel, now wolves extinct. This where live mind things scatter must end. I will kell the mind open elixni. No spider tricks, no loyal lies. Varus's truths. We fight for great machine together. And Dino that's exactly where I kind of see Mithrax. He's done. He's done. He's tired and sick of all this this never-ending eye for an eye BS, and he's wanting to move on. He's like, look, the great machine makes the decisions the great machine makes. You have it. You deserve it. Whatever. This is where we can start over. And that's where he said, spider tricks, no loyals lie. He's looking for truth. He's searching for a way to coexist, which again is where, and I mean, he says that here. He says, "I will kill the mind open elixni." So the open-minded elixni, the ones who are truly still elixni, not the fallen, not the scorn, the devil splicers who've mutated themselves beyond all things. He's like, "I will lead them," and that's where you kind of get the House of Light and all that. And you also see at the very beginning of the Queen Breaker, you see the reference that they are a fire team. It says 3 cloaked figures trek through a cave on a windswept asteroid. As they walk, they joke. They tell stories. They are a fire team. And so, and then like, the warlock and the hunter are like talking, and it's like the captain it's again, but he is explaining to the 2 guardians why the elixni, after the defeat of Cybele, why the wolves bowed to Mara. And he says that we've been breathe always love for honor. New promise not unmaken old. Wolves would been followed Marakel forever if Skolas does not appear again. So he was explaining why the wolves bowed to Mara, but then arguably betrayed Mara because Skolas was their original Kel. As soon as Skolas reappeared, their new promise, their old promise that predated the new promise took hold.
Yeah. It just makes me think, and I'm just trying to think. They've been hinting at this since the first mission on Titan, or that mission on Titan where the enemy, like he said, had that chance. That captain just, if you didn't kill him, he salutes you, and then they disappears.
He gives you the generator. Away. Yeah.
This has been on Bungie's mind or the writer's mind for a while, and this story is finally starting to come to a head. And I don't know if we're going to see it in Shadowkeep. I doubt we're going to see Shadowkeep, but in the next coming seasons, I'm just really
season of Dawn.
Yeah, I really, really, really want to know what's, because there's that part of me that really wants to happen, but at the same time that can be boring. But like I'm seeing all this now and kind of reading back on it. I'll take back what I said in that question thing. Is like, I absolutely think it might be just Mithrax. I don't think Varix is going to help him because it looks like he looks like he knows Varix, because what he just said in Queen Breakers, no more spider tricks or loyal lies. Varix the loyal. That's where I know it's not capitalized in the sentence, but spider tricks isn't capitalized either. But Spider Tricks, there's only one character we know is the Spider, and no loyal lies when we only know Varix, Varix as Varix the Loyal. It sounds like he knows about Varix, and he doesn't want a thing, like Dino said, he doesn't want a thing to do with it. He doesn't give a damn about the Elixni's old ways. He's like, we need to pull our head out of our fourth point of contact, and we need to, start over, and we need to work with the people in this system. And maybe he's actually starting to go somewhere with it.
The thing that's interesting is that if you look at the timeline of when we got these two different missions, when we got the enemy of my enemy was with the release of D2. That was one of the very first adventures you could do. And then you have 0 Hour, which was last spring when this came out. It was a whole year and a half later. So they can play a patient game with this. It doesn't have to happen right away.
That's just me being impatient.
I know. And I think Blue may be onto something with Season of the Dawn. But I mean, Eris also says we become the thing that goes bump in the night in the trailer. So it's like, okay,
I love that line too.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
She delivered that line perfectly. That thing that goes bump in the night, become that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Mithrax is probably the most interesting character in terms of fallen leadership. He's got Varix. Yeah, okay, Varix is off doing something. High water from him since after the prison.
It's interesting whether or not there's
no mention of him.
Yeah, it's interesting whether or not we'll get another Civil War type situation with the Fallen, because there's always infighting. That's how those factions work. That's how you get the feudal system with them anyway. They're constantly kind of battling for their own territory and whatnot. But if we see them bring up their own groups, their own colors, their own code, and who eventually becomes quote unquote Kell of Kells, which is kind of that always drive to be the prime of their groups, right? The king of it all. We don't know if they can even unite anybody at this point. They have to first gather their own groups, and then they have to create a situation where it will unite them all either through might or through coercion of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you were saying too, the Civil War is always kind of that big thing. It seems to be with the Fallen. Aramis, yeah, she's a player, but I don't think she's as powerful as they're making her out to be. I think she's a threat, but I think she's so focused on like rebuilding House of Devils that it might come down to the new progressive thinking of Mithrax versus the old loyalist version thinking of Varix.
Well, think about how the Fallen have always kind of their modus operandi, where they're going for tech, right? That's their big thing that they keep going for. And 3-point war, Blue, I get you on that one. Mm-hmm. If we have Aramis getting Siva tech, that brings a reason for Siva to come back into play in the game. Then you have Varix, who has basically shown himself in some respects to be kind of a coward in many Fallen eyes. He has to convince people to follow him. Yeah. So he's going to do it probably through politics, which is what that whole House Judgment was anyway. Then you have Mithrax, who's basically pulling Guardians, the most powerful thing that he can think of in the universe, to his side. Fickrel having undead.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I see what you're saying, and I disagree though that I get that he's like teaming up with the Guardians, but I don't think he's trying to bring them to his banner. I think he's more trying to unite them.
Well, that's the thing. It's like get somebody to fight with you.
But you're right. He's getting the most powerful thing he can find. But at the same time, it's not like he's saying, "Oh, only Guardians are allowed here." He's trying to bring, both these. He's trying to end essentially the fighting between the Fallen and humanity. For the great machine. We fight for the great machine together. Which
we started that path anyway because of Petra and Forsaken. Basically, and Spider's troops, essentially the Hitchhogs, the Hitchhog vandals.
Sonics. I don't know who designed that, but that's an interesting design.
I was really sad that none of them curled up in a ball and spun.
No, I wanted the servitor should have done that.
Yeah, like
or if the servitor died, there's just this massive shrapnel explosion that just impales everything around it.
I just want to put a tiny hat on him.
Like just Dead Space style.
Oh God!
Oh my God! What was that?
Just want a tiny hat to put on top of the Vandal's head.
But I think to go back to the competition there too, you see like, and like you kind of read what I typed. Bungie does like a 3-point war, and I mean even if you consider Fickrel, it's kind of a 4-point war. But I don't really consider Fickrel, mostly because whatever. I have my own like very convoluted opinion about Fickrel, but like Aramis is closely aligned with devils. The last people that we kind of encountered with devils were the splicers, the devil splicers. Yeah. And I think you're right. It gives an excuse to bring back Siva, but you also see a adherence to the old attitude towards the xenophobia of the Fallen, but using progressive means to fight. So that's one path, old thought process, new weapons. Then you have Varix, who's just wanting to cling to the old ways. It's the traditionalist, the old, get off my lawn. This is what it's about, the strength of the dregs, all that nonsense. And then you have Mithrax, who's also just kind of like, he's kind of like a combination of the two. He's like, look, the old ways are no longer viable because they don't like that. That's not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in today's world. Our world is, yeah, exactly. We are not in the world in which the old ways worked. But at the same time, he is adopting Varix's kind of the strength of the dreg-esque openness to non-xenophobic opinions, which is where devils and like a lot of the Fallen have always really struggled. Humanity has its own issues with xenophobia. Humanity has its own issues with xenophobia. Yes. Fallen also do as well. I mean, there's a long blood war that has been going on between the two species, and that's a steep incline to climb. But what we see with Mithrax is that if both sides are willing to put aside the differences for just a little bit, there is some common ground that can be found with them. I mean, we saw that with Varix. Now, Varix also, in the same way that Aramis wants to stick to the old ways, it seems, Varix wants to stick to the old ways, but Varix is wanting to ally and stick to the old ways. Aramis is just wanting to stick to the old ways, but not ally. Mithrax is kind of just being like, no, I want to ally, but I want to learn from the world that we exist in now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I was reading your in the private chat, and Green, thank you for all of that. Yeah, that's fantastic. And now I really want a hedgehog. It's really, that is okay. I got to take that off the screen, or I'm going to stare at that for a while. No, that's great. For those of you that can't see the private chat of the thing, Green put up a bunch of cute photos of hedgehogs with tiny hats. It is very cute. One has a little like poof hat with a little poof on top of it. Looks like he's lost and he has no house.
Yeah, because he's a sorting hat.
He has no house.
Appropriate.
No, that's great. But yeah, no, it's I can see where Blue's coming from with them setting up a 3-way war, and that could be the entire season of Dawn. We don't know. And then Green, and then it's the 3 ideologies. It's really what it is. It's just 3. It's 3 ideologies. One completely different than the other 2, and one that's, hey, I still want things to be the same, but I'm not willing to exterminate you for it. And we can work together. And then you have the people that are very obsessed with exterminating everything that is not them. So yeah, it's that what do you, I guess a trichotomy, what the word would be.
Yeah, it's like trifecta.
a trifecta. That trifecta is almost a powder keg.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's a perfect powder keg. One person does one thing, it causes the other 2 to react. And if you want to use historical references, go look at World War One. And
that's exactly where my brain was.
Yeah, with the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he got taken out, and a bunch of treaties took into play. And if one person moves against the other, and all of a sudden you have an entire solar system.
There's a 3-letter acronym for that. MAD.
Mutually assured destruction. unless I'm wrong. That's what.
No, that's it.
Okay. I was like,
Everybody's mad.
we're all going with the mad, yeah. Which is honestly scary because I was I don't know if I thought about this, but I was playing Mayhem the other day, and fun game mode, by the way, absolutely fantastic. That's not sarcasm. I was having a blast. And Shaq says something in the beginning of it that honestly scared the ever living out of me. It says this is a simulation of all out open war.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is there's 12 Guardians in one arena. It sounds like Armageddon with all the supers going. All out open war. I can't imagine what the battle, but a fallen war between the Guardians, like an all out, like Siva, Varix, Mithrax, and all that. That's a scary thought. Like all out open war. I just can't imagine what that would look like in game, or if you can just use your imagination and think about the scale of what that would look like. I mean, it would make the battle over Saturn look like nothing, in my opinion. At least on the ground. Unless a Guardian can throw a Nova bomb in space, which that's a whole nother conversation entirely. But
I mean, we have the last time we saw a bunch of Guardians together fighting that all had their light was in the trailer for D2.
Yeah.
I mean, we really didn't see a whole lot of that since then because the Red War cutscenes, nobody had their light except for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, that's all out war to a point because, like you said, the light went away at one point. But before that, it sounded like Guardians were fighting back pretty brutally.
Mm-hmm.
And Disluted Duck said it would look like Twilight Gap. Twilight Gap was, while it was devastating, if the wolves had been there, it would have been even.
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, with Twilight Gap, isn't that where Shax's team made their their stand?
Mm-hmm. They made their charge.
So I mean, that wasn't even a ton of Guardians. A lot of the Guardians pulled back on orders of was it Saladin at the time?
Yep. And he took his team and he made essentially a counterattack, which is a genius on it. Honestly, tactically, it's a genius idea. If your enemies in array, hit them where they're weakest. But Disluted Duck said, yeah, it would be like Twilight Gap, and I honestly think it would be bigger than that. I think it would be bigger than Red War. Yeah, the Cabal brought down the hammer on us, but
Battle of Six Fronts.
Yeah, Battle of Six Fronts, even, and that kind of conflict, it's literally a fight to the death at that point. And I know I kind of get dramatic with some of these things, but that's the world of Destiny. It's dramatic highs and dramatic lows. And yeah, I mean, like I keep saying, Bungie is always moving us towards something, some sort of narrative, like, climax of a certain storyline. And I think the Fallen are getting towards their narrative climax here, where that's going to affect how they interact with humanity. And I know some people have said it, but possibly Guardian Fallen or Guardian Elixir at some point, maybe, but that'd probably be like D3 or something. I would remake one of my Guardians to make good Fallen. Absolutely.
Would you?
Oh yeah. There's a Titan I never play with.
So a lot of our focus has been on Mithrax, mainly because he's been the one we've gotten the most updated information on, I think. Varix has been pretty MIA, except for a few lore entries now and then, but even then it's just like, what are you doing, dude? Do we want to kind of wrap up? Because we know where Fickrel's at. Aramis is...
I mean, we don't have much on Aramis besides that she's a devil. She's an old devil that really wants to rebuild House Devils, and
she's wanting to find Siva.
Which, I mean, I don't blame her for. She saw how powerful it made them. It almost made them unstoppable until we kicked the spider, whatever his name was, Axis, in the teeth.
Mm-hmm. Not the spider.
Or spider. He was a spider guy, wasn't he? He built his...
Yeah, his body. He was weird. So that's an Outliers with Aramis.
Yep, and Outbreak Perfected. Aramis really, I mean, you're right. Aramis we know that she's a ship thief, hence the name. Let me see real quick.
Can she create a directive for Siva that would give her the power that Devils had, but without having the runaway that Devils had a problem with?
Well, I mean, there's a long answer to that and a short answer to that. Short answer is maybe. Long answer is probably. And the reason why I kind of say that is that So she is known as the ship stealer. And with the like that implies that she would hijack ships, which does imply a degree of technical know-how. Now, the other thing with the fallen ships is, like Potato has said, again, you have a lot of servitors involved in piloting these ships. So again, you have a degree of AI already installed there. So it also, it's maybe because I don't know if they can cross-reference the logic between a servitor and with Siva. We've seen them integrate Siva with a servitor, but I don't know. It just depends on what Aramis is actually doing. It's like the logic to control Siva is really not super difficult. It's just you have to give it an escape path, and that's really what the splicers didn't do.
Yeah, they didn't.
They made it circular logic, which is why it kind of went rampant the way it did. And so, again, she's trying to, her big thing really, and this is from Outliers. It says, once known personality known as Aramis, or Aramis the ship stealer, a house devil's baroness incarcerated during the Wolf Wars. She successfully fled the prison of elders during the mass escape orchestrated by Varix. Aramis is a classical fallen pirate of the old ways, vicious, uncompromising, and possessing cunning of the highest degree. Field reports indicate that she is rallying violent dissidents to reconstruct house devils from the ground up. This agent believes her to be the most viable candidate for universal fall and reunification, and would urge the Vanguard and other interested leadership to aggressively prioritize her destruction. So, I mean, and that's really the big there. Yeah, and then Dino's talking about. Sorry, I thought you were talking about something. No, you're fine. I saw a block. I saw a block of text flying. Yeah, so Aramis again, the primary thing with Outbreak Perfected is that Aramis was trying basically to steal tech. Really, it just happened. I keep going back and forth because I don't know if it's necessarily Siva that she's obsessed with, or if she's just trying to get weapons, and Siva just happens to be where she's hitting.
I mean, if she shows up on Nessus, we'll find out.
Right, yeah. I mean, right now we have one instance with her. And so I hesitate to make a full pattern. It does seem like, and the reason I kind of feel like that might be okay is because, again, devils, the big thing with the devils was the splicers. And so, like, I don't know, like, Aramis is going to be, of the separatist, Aramis is going to be the threat. Definitely. Fickrel, he's annoying, but to be blunt, we kind of have him in control. Like, oh, he can keep coming back. Guess what? We have an army of people who can do that exact same trick. To kind of make a light, very grossly oversimplification of the situation. Aramis,
as long as he can't create more scorn.
Well, he can, but we just blow him up.
Meh.
Right? I mean, how many screeb is it going to take before he realizes that they just take one? It's I don't know. To me, Fickrel's a threat. Like, definitely, don't get me wrong. Fickrel is a threat, but he's not an unknown variable. We kind of know what Fickrel's damage is. Like, he's just, like, he's a known variable. Aramis is a new variable that is unknown, and that means that the tangent that she's on, we don't know where damage is going to come from.
The other thing is without the stolen intelligence card, is Fickrel actually going towards wanting to be a leader? Because he had Aldrin.
Right. And that's the other thing that I kind of dismiss. That's actually tying into my reason why I dismiss Fickrel. Because Fickrel is... He, to be blunt, I view Fickrel as a undead version of Tannix. He's just, I don't see... I mean, his biggest thing is that they are concerned, in Outliers, their biggest concern with Fickrel is that they are acknowledging that the body of Uldren Sov is missing, and so they are thinking that he is responsible for the reclamation of that body, which points to the fact that the city doesn't know that Uldren is resurrected, But it also says that this is the reason Fickrell is kind of on their radar, is because they do know that Uldren's body is missing, and Fickrell has a propensity for resurrection. So they're like, oh no, and he's also obsessed with Uldren because he refers to him as the Awoken Father. So like, they're just connecting dots with the information that they have, and that leads them to the realization that, okay, well, Fickrell might be caught, and Uldren would be a problem if he's resurrected again via Fickrell's corrupted ether, which is going to be a fascinatingly fun conversation to watch when Uldren shows up as a guardian, which I think everyone universally has agreed that they all want to be a wallflower on that particular thing.
That's going to be, I mean, we thought a Fallen and Guardian fight would look bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
I think somebody said it best once on the show. There's going to be a line of people that are just like, can we just keep kicking him off the wall and his ghost can bring back? And then, just everyone just lines up, makes a nice big line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, whatever. The best one that I've seen is the webcomic where I think it's Ikora is trying to talk Zavala down from the ledge of like just wrecking him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Zavala would actually try to wreck him though?
No, I don't. But that's why I love the webcomic, is because it's like, oh, that's funny. Like to think that I think Zavala has more control.
Like
I think Zavala has
I
more
do
control.
too.
He might walk away, but I think
he might be angry, but he's not going to kick off a new guardian, especially if the new guardian doesn't realize what their past was.
And that's the thing, right? Is like that's my argument against the whole thing. The anti-Uldren is it's not Uldren. Like, you guys can be mad at Uldren, and I understand that. Don't agree with it. I understand it, but at the end of the day, everyone gets a clean slate. We have everyone gets a clean slate when they're brought back.
Well, we're also assuming too that, I mean, where he is, it looks like he's in the Dreaming City, or at least he's somewhere in the when he's brought back.
Right.
And he might come back and not know who he is. Yeah, that's fine. But there is so much more around him, almost like, Anna Bray had her little name tag thing when she was, he's got his entire
and that could be the reason why no one knows where he is because he's like, oh.
Yeah, and so he's back to life. And he might have he has way more of a chance of seeing his old life, or not remembering it, but having clues to what he did in his old life than any other Guardian in history.
Zavala's going to retire when he sees Uldren.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I'm out.
He's just going to jump off the wall. It's like, nah, I'm done. Don't res me, Ghost. And if you res me, I'm jumping again. But yeah, it's not Uldren, but he has all the opportunities in the world or in the solar system to remember, or at least see what he had done before. And, he has zero allegiance to the city. Every Guardian has zero allegiance to the city. It's only what our ghost has told us. Oh yeah, hey, by the way, there's this place where all of us get together and we fight back against the enemies of humanity. And, what if he's on his way to the city and all of a sudden he sees this picture, Uldren wanted, or Uldren killed, murderer killed, and it's him. I know I'm just throwing spin foil out there, but I mean, his face is somewhere in the system that, he's a murderer, or he was killed, or not. Oh, actually, no, not that he was killed, but that he was, still dead, or, they mourn him, or there's something up there of a picture of him being mourned, so he's dead.
Gosh.
Why am I? Yeah. Because remember what Petra said, to the Fallen, Uldren died over Saturn. And so, I'm jumping around and speculating and seeing a bunch of things, and it's also almost 1 a.m. That's why I'm doing this. My head is in places it shouldn't be.
We should be wrapping up.
We will wrap up. So using that as a wrap up.
Hey, wrap up.
Wrap up. Shout outs.
1 a.m. Shout out to alarm clocks, because I have to go to work soon.
I am going to give a very special shout out to Mr. Dino Games in chat. He has been every time I get to hang out and see someone in the chat, or if I'm just listening to the thing. Dino, dude, you are a constant stream. You are an encyclopedia of this game's knowledge, and every time I have some crackpot theory, or I say something that's just completely out of left field and wrong, he is right there to freaking make sure I'm in the right, or at least say, hey man, this is what it actually says, or like that. And to no end love that we have that within this community. There's someone who has that like encyclopedic knowledge almost, it seems like. And yeah, he's my MVP for the night, because we were just talking back and forth about the Battle of Twilight Gap, and we just about what was actually being said, because I thought the battle was actually, I knew that some of it was taking place within the city, but I thought when Shax's counterattack took place, it was outside of the city, and he pushed like 5 kilometers into the Fallen lines, and that was what kind of drove the counterattack and broke the Fallen. And he pointed me right to the mountaintop thing that I should have looked at and should have known. So you're my shout out for the night, Dino. You are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, Blue, your turn. Mine was my alarm clock.
Your alarm clock. Yeah, no, I mean, again, just a big thank you to Potato and to Chad as well. Again, we can't do this without you guys. We wouldn't want to do it without you guys, to be fair. But it's so much more fun to do it with a live chat. It's also so much more interesting to have, people, Potato, like you, the various guests that we've had on. It always is super fun to have different points of view brought onto the show to argue with, to agree with, to debate over, all that fun stuff. So a big shout out to everyone who has been a guest in the past, who's been in the live chat, all that stuff. So, but yeah. And with that being said, goodbye. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/focusedfirechat. Links to all our episode archives can also be found at www.focusedfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusedfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all the amazing work being featured over on thelorenetwork.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.